session call to order because it is 5:40 p.m. So we will call this meeting to order, and I don't believe we gave another roll call, do we? See, that's the problem without having my computer up, really. All right. So we are now in public session. Consideration of new hires, transfers, resignations, and retirements. I believe we've already heard about this, so I believe we just need a motion on it, correct? You have the language in there that you want? Or is just to approve the?
Just to
So if any board member would like to use the recommended language and make a motion, feel free.
Make a motion to approve the new hires, transfers, resignations, and retirements as presented.
Motion by McElwain, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Fear, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is 4.02, consideration of equestrian cooperative team agreement between Chippewa Falls High School and McDonald High School for the 2026-27 and 27-28 school year. Does anybody have any information on that?
I do not.
Has it always been a co-op?
No. Peggy's question was, are our numbers down? Why are we doing that?
I think there was an interest from a particular student from McDonald, and in order to have an affiliation co-op 2 years ago. So I think this is a renewal.
Okay.
So we did do it.
Yeah, it's been going on for the last couple of years for sure.
And if we would have said no, would that student have enrolled in Chippewa to be on the equestrian team?
There was a question at the time and did not get an answer.
Horse would have.
The horse would have, yeah. Okay.
But we don't get to get FTEs for the horse, so oh well.
And actually, the more I think about this had been occurring for a long time without a cooperative agreement in place. So it was
Yeah, I can see that
a
happening.
bit of a catch-up so that state titles were not affected.
So it was a
Are
little.
they gonna look back on the last 8-10 years of state titles?
11.
Ineligible players? We're in open session. Okay. Gotta be a statute of limitations in there somewhere, isn't there? Sun Prairie's coming after us.
I mean, seriously.
Sun Prairie's probably been second for most of those years.
They stopped having one a long time ago. So they,
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they don't. They weren't able to fill out the equestrian team. 10 years ago they were. They were competitive, but not anymore.
I think our team is always kind of funny because you compete with the Sun Prairies and the Memorials that can spend $20,000 a horse, and we got horses that are like 5 days away from the glue factory. Blue collar girls, wearing $100 uniforms instead of 4,000 fancy horse uniforms, and we're still winning. That's what's awesome.
It's about culture.
It's culture.
Do we need to vote? Yes.
Any further discussion? Okay.
I make a motion to approve the WIHA equestrian co-op agreement for 26-27 and 27-28 as presented.
Motion by Matt.
I didn't read that either. Just so you know.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Fear. Now you can vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Assuming that was the case, it's already been signed. All right. Consideration of the WOLT selection process. So I think all board members have a draft of the special board meeting goals and everything, or did we just get, oh, you sent that out to everyone.
Yeah, I went out.
Thanks to everybody. We can make copies if you don't have one in front of you. Would anyone like a copy?
I would too.
I'll print it.
Yep, she's already on it.
Search for it.
So just a note for everybody that the meeting is being live streamed and of course recorded, and so I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page with that. So Chad and I sat down at length and talked about how do we go about doing this, and just to begin to start to say, like, it's a privilege to be able to talk about this and have this type of resource for us, and hopefully we can make a significant impact for kids and families with the discussion. And so when we were brainstorming and trying to scatter out what are all of the different implications and trying to put them in a order that makes sense for us to talk about, the first thing that we thought about was, like, honestly, goals for the meeting. The goals for the meeting are just draft ones that Chad and I created, and don't have to be the board's goals if you disagree with them. They're something that we're advancing. The agenda that follows that are just a reflection of our thoughts about what the goals of the meeting are. So the goals and the agenda mirror each other. And so I'm just gonna run through these thoughtfully, just to talk to the board about when you were thinking about how do we effectively talk about this, this is what came up for us. If the board has additions, if they have other thoughts, we are completely open to those, but it's something that we just ran through. So what we thought is, like, if at the end of this meeting, we have a clear understanding of the evaluation criteria that we will use to determine the viability of the proposals, that would be helpful. If, and we link them later on in the agenda, if the board says to us, like, yeah, that's our understanding, you can use those criteria to evaluate the proposals, and those are locked in, that helps us. Second thing is as we determine the priority for the allocation, does the board have any thoughts about a legacy project versus a distribution of funds across more proposals? So we do have a submission from 76 different staff members at the high school. We attached all of them that indicates that there's a preference, at least from the people that signed that from the staff at High, that there is a preference for a legacy project versus a distribution of funds over multiple projects. So for me, I don't have a strong opinion on that, but I am looking for direction from the board. If the board says, Brad, you sit down with the central office administration, you guys decide, that's fine too. I just want to make sure that I'm super clear on what the board's expectations are. The next one is to have a clear understanding of whether to move forward with the current applications as they stand, being that they're now a year old, or if the board would like a process to reopen for additional applications or updates or revisions from the applications that were submitted a year ago. And so that's something that if the board would want that makes sense. If also the board is like, listen, like they've already put in all that work, let's not have them redo anything, that makes sense too. So I want a little bit of conversation about that. To have a clear understanding of who makes the final decisions, because there's pros and cons to each one. Is the board the final decision maker? Is the administrative team the final decision maker? It is a combination between, like, the administrative team making a recommendation to the board and the board decides, or a committee. If you have a committee, there's more voices involved, but it just takes longer. And so each one of those options sort of has pros and cons. A little bit of direction from the board as far as what they're thinking, I think would be helpful for that. Having a clear understanding of the method actually for evaluating and prioritizing the proposals. I think just based on like the criteria, if we have an understanding of what the criteria are and they're locked in, it would be relatively easy for us to say, like, we're gonna assign a value to each one of these, we're going to then evaluate the proposals according to the value, then it would be a numerical number. If the board would rather have sort of a more holistic approach to it and consider some of all of the nuances, not really in a sort of a numeric way, but more of a holistic approach, we could do that too. And then I think there are, as I'm talking to people about this, there are just some other factors that I think we just have to think about and decide to what extent beyond the criteria do they have a role in us making a decision. So for example, like we have a master facilities plan. There are identified areas in the master facilities plan for updating and renovation that mirror some of the proposals that we have. And so like there are options to be able to say, like, we believe that a certain proposal could be an option, but we're also going to designate a future capital maintenance effort as a priority in some type of future capital maintenance or, you know, capital referendum or something like that. We could have that type of approach. There are now there's more competition for kids in the region, and so is there any thought on how one of these proposals, or maybe a forthcoming proposal, gives the school district a competitive edge against other educational, regional educational options? Or that could be something that doesn't factor. does the idea of timing of the decisions relative to other fundraising campaigns, or a possible, spring referendum, depending on how the board decides that timeline that you looked at in the July meeting. I don't know if there's implications there, and I think there are a couple of others that I have underneath. So for me, as I was thinking about this, if we can have discussions on some of these, so I can have an understanding of what the board's thinking is as a whole, that helps us then develop a best next step. And so that being said, if the board feels like some of the thoughts that are captured in the goals are not something that the board would like to consider, that's helpful too, because that means then that, Chad and I would begin to try to critically think about that. At this point, that's what we were thinking about the goals of the meeting, and the agenda underneath it reflects the goals up on top. If the board would like to talk about another topic in there, let's put it in there so we can keep track of it. So I would just open it up for discussion to say, are there additional goals that the board would like to think about, or, were those things that Chad and I reviewed comprehensive enough where we can maybe dip into the agenda and start from there?
Well, I think the one thing that the board would have to have an idea of what was in the particular will. Because I know we were told about it, but there are certain conditions that were put on it. Obviously, one of our goals, not one of our goals, but one of our requirements would be that it follow the terms of the will, right?
Yeah, I think just having that on whatever documents we're working with, so that if we start venturing off, we can be brought back to, hey, this is, if we get off in the weeds, I'm not saying.
The trust attorney indicated that there are no restrictions other than
That's what I thought
high
you
school
said
and
before.
Stilson, that was the intended use. And no responsibility for follow-up, would appreciate us letting her know what was done.
So there, I thought that somebody said something, maybe, I don't know where I'm getting this, but that somebody said that they didn't want it to go towards like operational expenditures, but.
I may have said that, but it wasn't in the.
So that would be, we determine whether that's a laudable goal, but it is technically, we could do something.
Unrestricted.
$1 million is $40,000 a year, forever and ever. And just more of the Stilson piece of it somehow, but.
Yeah, it's, well, you could find $10 million projects at the high school and they would all be valuable.
Right.
Stilson's a brand new facility, relatively new, and, it might take them years to spend it, but that's also okay.
So just the general goal to be added would just be to follow the wishes of the donor, and that's it.
Always.
Is there anything in the proposals for Stilson that could be shared with the other elementary schools, like something that could be, it has value, not, that could be moved, wheels?
Well, the tractor has wheels, but
Yeah.
practically getting it from one location to the other probably is valuable.
Yeah, and I think like what might be helpful is if we, like, for the purposes of this conversation, maybe look to, at times, think about an agenda item with the Stilson money and the Chi-High money coupled and then also decoupled. I think one of the things that the board may consider, or depending on how the board feels about the final decision maker, is that relative to the Stilson money, I think there probably needs to be some strategic visioning exercise and to look at those applications after some strategic visioning exercises that could include options that, yes, serve Stilson, but also have the potential to serve other sites. So that's something that we can do. All right, so what I thought we would start with is the current state. For Chi-High proposals, we've got a proposal, and we linked all of the submitted proposals there so the board can click into those and read them directly. We've got a proposal on a weight room we've got a proposal on a fitness center, we've got a proposal on a music remodel, we've got a staff statement that's not really a proposal, but it's a statement of opinion, and then we've got a proposal for 2 laser systems. So I'm summarizing, they're long proposals, and so they're linked there. For Stilson, like Chad was saying, is that we've got a proposal for a storage facility, a tractor, and then a mascot. And so those are what we have at this point. We also, Angela was great about just linking the minutes from August of 2025 about when the board last heard this, what were the minutes from that meeting, and so they're at the board's disposal there, so you can click in and take a look at those pretty quickly. And just review what the board's will was at the time, which was to table this and come back to it when we had capacity to be able to do it. Is anyone remembering anything different or noticing anything different other than that review of what I think our current state is for that? We're in possession of money, we've got those proposals, they're a year old, and we're revisiting this after an August 25th meeting.
My thought is then, because I know that it was, or at least what I remember, is a reasonably short timeline for them to get it in. So I think we should stick with whoever submitted proposals then, but they may need to update the pricing. So I think that we might have to, it's just a suggestion, but we might have to let the people that submitted the proposals update them, at least regarding their estimated costs, because that was part of it.
It's great feedback. It's like the idea of relative to Chi-High, the board is going to have to decide. This is one of those times to uncouple things. Relative to Chi-High, that the district is no longer accepting new proposals, but we are opening up the existing proposals to revision. The board will have to think about whether it wants to do the same for Stilson or ask that community do some strategic visioning to try to look for additional proposals that we can consider.
Well, I recall that there were several high school staff that spoke at that meeting. And I feel like out of that is where that special meeting came, like we discussed maybe having them,
Do a presentation.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I remember.
And as long as, I was thinking about this driving here, I think we should double check with Kirk to see if some of that can be done. Because, to be honest, these people are competing against each other for the funds. And everybody being able to sit in here puts the first people that do a presentation at a huge disadvantage. And I'm wondering if it qualifies for a closed session, at least for that part. We can deliberate possibly in open session, but I would just check, because I would be concerned that there could be some unfair advantage.
I think in addition to that, this is that some of the proposals involve a bidding process, and so if in their presentation they are presenting on anything that would undercut them being able to bid and get a competitive bid,
Right.
that is also a reason to go into closed session. So that's something that you could also consider in terms of like allowing the presentations to be closed session.
That would be, I mean, if I was a school district attorney, that would be my recommendation. But I'm not, so don't take it. No, just kidding.
Could I add one? Sharon, you'd mentioned that the timeline was relatively short. I agree with that, but just for a data check here, so the proposal forms were sent to the high school staff, to the Stilson staff on May 28th. They were due July 31st. So
I'm not saying it was completely unreasonable, I'm just saying.
I know, it just caused me to say, well, how long was it? So I just wanted to bring that clarification.
I mean, to try to justify allowing new ones, that those people complied with literally doing their proposals when they weren't working.
So my strategic brain, I'm sorry, you guys can throw pencils or writing utensils at me, wants to sort of
don't have
eat this
one.
elephant one bite at a time here. So I think like if the board can give direction on the evaluation criteria, then we can get into how are we having them actually, how are we making the decision, the process, which would involve a presentation. So but if we can chunk this out a bit, wondering, does the board feel that the current, and we linked that evaluation framework in there, I can read it off, that currently was aligned to the proposal and was presented to the board, and that evaluation framework of the proposals as it currently stands is that they have to provide a detailed project summary. They have to illustrate how the project aligns with the school mission. They have to describe how it benefits students, how students will directly benefit, identifies the number of students impacted, both immediately and then over the long term. And then also how it benefits students at different grade levels or different student populations. The next one is the implementation timeline, provide a timeline for implementation with key milestones. And there are budget details that they should include. Then there's a sustainability plan, which explains how the project will be sustained beyond the initial implementation and identifies any long-term maintenance or operational requirements. It asks that they provide measures of how they will evaluate the success of the impact of the project. And then the last one is any supporting documentation. Right now, those are the categories that we had people fill out as they submitted proposals, which would mean that we would also likely use those items as ways to look at the viability of the proposal. Does that still pass the smell test for the board, or do you want to recheck them or renew them? Do you want to go through, like, is there anything that we want to keep, drop, modify?
I thought those were appropriate. But that's just, if we change them though, then
That changes the criteria that the
correct.
presentations were built on, so.
And I would assume we give credit to Chad for that. I'm guessing you put the criteria together, because we didn't.
Jeff probably did a lion's share of it, but, yeah.
Well, the other thing is, we don't have enough to make any one project happen. You know, we can give there's not enough money to remodel, there's not enough money to build a new facility, there's not enough money. So I think that we have to either decide, you know, how are we going to do this, that we can get the best opportunity. If we gave a percent to any individual group, will they have the ability to take some and maybe meet some kind of guideline? You know, maybe we aren't gonna get a new facility, but could they pool this with something where they get something better than what they have? And I would say that with all the organizations that have applied. So, you know.
Are you saying maybe another criteria, like other funding available to support the project?
Yeah, well,
For
yeah,
the
I think so. I
evaluation
think you have to, because we can't say, okay, here is X dollars for you, but by the way, your project's gonna cost double X. So it really isn't gonna get you there.
Because we got budget details and sustainability plan on the
Mhm.
framework. Are you looking for something additional?
Yeah, well, like I said, it doesn't seem like we can accomplish, you know,
But,
go ahead.
well, all I was gonna say is, but if you say that this is the one, I mean, you could put criteria on, we keep the money in our fund, so we get interest on it until they raise whatever, I mean, if that's what you wanna do, you could build parameters around it where they have a year to do it. Because it should not be open-ended, And we should control the money until then.
Right, when we look at the actual
But we might be
plans,
getting ahead of ourselves.
we
It's
can
really-
consider that, however, for the purposes of what you're saying, that's in there, like she said. We wanted budget details, so if they have a $5 million project and they're only getting $1 million, we obviously then need the feasibility, explain where the other 4 million is gonna come from. So, and those are then things that we'll consider. If they come to us with a $5 million project and they don't explain that, then they haven't done a good job meeting our feasibility plan.
And I, just off the top of my head, I know that, like, for some of the music activities this year, their budget has been cut for specific events, like when they're going out in the community and stuff, transportation. So
Well,
is,
they cut the musical too.
yeah, so is that money spent rather than brick and mortar? Is that something to think about too, which is something that we haven't even discussed? So there's so many parameters here that it's hard to come up with, unless you're gonna go percentage, say it's percent. What do you guys wanna do with this?
Well, again, though, that may be getting ahead of ourselves
sorry about
because
that.
for the criteria of it, my
Well,
question would
I
be,
think it's in, I agree.
this was something I think the board sort of approved. The only change is the new superintendent, so the question is put to you. Do you have anything that you see that you would want to change or add?
On the criteria, if you, so I actually put in, I guess it's agenda number 5, I brainstormed with Chad additional strategic factors that I think the board, and all of us, I guess, may want to consider. And it could come in the form of the discussion post analysis of the criteria. It could be a question that we pose in an interview to the people that have submitted it. I do think the fact that, you know, there's a master facilities plan, and to what extent does the decision that we make here for allocation work in concert with or maybe against the master facilities plan? And we're also not in a zero-sum game. If we make a decision, we can also say that the proposal that ended up like being prioritized in a different way isn't a priority. We're still going to make that a priority in upcoming capital. You know, the board is saying that we continue to recognize this is a priority. It's illustrated in the master facilities plan, and we'd like to designate this as a priority in the future. It could be that the board wants to talk about, you know, anything that would position us competitively among some of the other regional educational options. The timing, safety is something that I think the board should consider too. Do any of the proposals have an element of safety, creating an environment that keeps our kids more safe? I'm not sure if that's a question that we would like to consider. Steve, I struggled with this too. I had this sense of like this idea of potential additional philanthropic investment. I'm not quite sure how to frame it, but I've been here for now about 6 weeks, and I'm hearing conversations that there's people that are interested in investing. And one of the things that I'm just trying to wrap my arms around is 1 million mean 3 million, or is 1 million just mean 1 million based on that philanthropic investment? And so is that a question that the board asks in this process to say, you know, is there additional philanthropic investment that at this point, because we haven't just gotten to the right time to say, it's just sitting on the sidelines and we just don't know yet, is there additional philanthropic investment? So seed money, 1 million or 700 or 500,000 actually is more money because there's others. We also, like, so for example, we had a donation come in, and one of the things that the central office administration talked about with the donation that came in is replacing which mascot was it? The Stilson mascot, because so we have a proposal right now that we could take care of with a different donation, a smaller donation that came in. And so like there are some other donations that came in that could, I guess, resolve a couple of the other items in the proposal list. So when I was thinking about the additional strategic factors, that's the list that when Chad and I, that's the list that we came up with. I do think that if we're really critically thinking about it, that those would be topics that we would wanna talk about.
I think so, especially with some of the high school, proposals. Um, You know, where does that fall into the master facility plan?
The problem with the master facility plan is you compare it to donations and what people want to see out of their donations is it's clear that like for referendum purposes in the master information plan, or the master plan was kind of around, if I recall, anything extracurricular was very low on that list. We would never be able to go to a referendum for anything extracurricular.
It's actually two separate things. I think you're referring to the survey, the tax tolerance survey, but the master facility study does look through the lens of educational adequacy and equality, and then what are the programmatic and spatial kind of needs to run a Division I high school in Chippewa. So
Doesn't it set priorities too? That's what I thought.
areas of need, needs of improvement, areas of improvement.
Because that's where, if you have the funding, that's where you put your dollars for capital improvements.
The higher priority things. Alright,
So again, the question though is if we change those criteria, we do have to consider that, then does that mean that we're essentially reopening it? Or do we just send the only changed criteria and say, update, your numbers based on all the other criteria, but also we've added these two criteria that we also wanna hear your,
I don't view, this is a public document now, anybody can ask for it. I don't view this as criteria for what they've had to put in the proposal. I view it as other factors that we would look at. That's how I view this.
That's
can
how
look at
I
it like
see it
that.
as well.
There is a scenario too where if the board said, we're not accepting any additional proposals for Chi-High, but we do have a couple of follow-up questions that we'd like, for the people that
Right.
submitted proposals, that we'd like follow-up statements. Like you could do also something like that
Right.
to get more information.
And do we,
You might get lots of requests for the master facilities plan.
It's in board.
Approve library.
No, I know that, I just,
are we going to approve a specific number, or are we going to approve a percent? Would we say, okay, you get 75%, you get, 20%, now you can do with that 20%, and then if you need to raise more, or is that because
but I
final
think,
numbers are gonna be
think about
difficult?
that.
Cart before the horse.
That's
One
what I
carpet,
was just
yeah.
gonna say,
We
that
can do
has
all
to
of
do when we're thinking about it later, just like, this is a weird comparison, but just like the expulsion hearings, when we say the factors that we would allow reentry, we have to get there first.
Sure.
Here's what I would like to see, and I don't know if this short circuits a lot of the meeting, maybe it doesn't, but you're looking for what help we need from the administration. Ultimately, I think the board makes the decision. That's my opinion. The board is gonna vote on this, not administration. But what I'd like to see from administration is, these are your recommendations, looking over all the proposals that we have, how they fit in with the criteria that we've given you, how they fit in with our master plan, how they fit in with our budget, basically just additional recommendations from administration that have your opinions on that. So, I think that ultimately then, once we get that, we're just gonna have to make a vote. And then we have all the options that you're talking about, Steve, endowment and not do anything, right? Anything's on the table. But I think what we need from administration is your view on how it fits in with the criteria.
I agree. I think that for us to sit here and judge, based on a presentation and whatever, we'd like more definitive information from staff, administration, and people like that as far as what they feel is the best interest for the district.
would there be a good way for us, once we have these narrowed down with maybe some more detailed costs and plans, would there be a good way for us to then present that to the community and say, okay, these are the options we're considering. Is there anybody out there that would back or match or whatever, any one particular of these items, so that we might increase the amount of money that we have to put towards that particular thing before we make a final decision on what we're gonna do. Then we have some more feedback from, maybe there's another donor.
I think that'd be a decision that whatever group was approved would have to go out and go after that. You know, it's just like when the Booster Club was looking at their facility, they were going out into the community to find out what was available. With other groups are going to be approved for something, and then it would be on them to go out and, you know, not us. I think it'd be out for them to go out and try to find more support for their projects.
I think that would be.
So is that still,
Go ahead.
is that still an ongoing project? Because for me, it, you know, you got weight room, fitness center, music remodel. So those would all kind of fit into a activity building.
But they're far off that number though.
Again, I think we can discuss that, but looking at their proposals, number one, I think there's positives to what you're saying. But one thing to consider for our negatives is number one, and it's mentioned in this sheet here, talk about a referendum, right? If we put this off more than a month or two down the road and we start heading towards referendum, and if you send it to the people, what are half of your responses gonna be? Take that million and just put it towards your budget, because we're not giving you a penny.
Or, why are you asking for this when you have $1 million? I mean,
Right.
or they'll think it's a capital referendum.
Which is a legitimate question, but that's why I brought it back to, you know, yeah, there weren't any stipulations on it. But I don't know any donor, unless they specifically donated, that would say, I'm gonna give to the Chippewa Falls School District so that they can have operational funding. This is not something you typically see out of a donor.
I would agree.
Certainly not of this magnitude.
Right.
So I'm gonna repeat back to the board what I think I heard. Okay. Is that the decision framework that we're going to move forward with is that the administrative team is gonna recommend, the board decides.
I would say, not necessarily recommend, but evaluate. I mean,
Evaluate,
you're going to have,
Thank you.
I think, positives and negatives that are gonna come across to us. But ultimately, yeah, I wouldn't say, okay, this is the plan we're recommending that you go with.
Thank you. And that,
Can I make a suggestion too? Well, I suppose it's kind of like recommending, but, I mean, even prioritizing, I don't know, I would be interested what the administration has for recommendations, I really would. Because they're the ones who work in the buildings all the time, I would be interested in that.
Don't you think
We
we're
don't
gonna
have to
get that,
take
like
their
if they
recommendation.
say, this is how the project's ranked according to our master plan, this is how they ranked according to our, goals.
Well, yeah, if
Is
they
there
give a
sort of an-
ranking for all of those things, then yes. I mean, that's really in essence kind of a recommendation anyway.
Can you see a situation where you would take a look at this and say, we know that you put this criteria together and this project ranked a lot higher, but we're still recommending this one, like for, so that's how, is there a difference
yeah,
between recommendation?
so, I mean, for all of us candidly here, we know that the elephant in the room here is the politics behind the decision, which is not in the criteria at all. So yeah, I can, you know, in a lot of scenarios where like you do a really thoughtful job about applying criteria that is not conscientious of the politics behind a decision, and then, you know, what ends up being the primary factors as far as the decision is really sort of the politics behind it. So, and also, like, I think it's important for everybody to see us, eyes up, chin up, going through this process with integrity, which is one of the values of the school district too. So I think like the approach of a thorough evaluation that has some different ways of prioritizing these against some of the factors, I think that's a great thing to inform the decision. We all know that we're not gonna make a decision in a vacuum. There will be politics and, you know, public opinion that plays into this, but that's not any different than some of the other decisions.
With that in mind, I mean, I guess I'd like to take a little bit of heat off you guys. It's our decision, I mean, we're elected officials, we're the ones that have to make the political decisions. So if you make an actual recommendation, I think you're gonna do two things. One, you're gonna upset all the other people that you're not recommending in favor, as opposed to just, we're looking at you guys as a neutral, we're evaluating the criteria, and this is what we're telling you based upon our investigation, because you have more time to look into it than we do, right? But a recommendation, I think, puts you under pressure, not only if the board follows it, but perhaps even more so if the board disagrees with you and does something different right over your, I mean, that shows that, you know, we're not following the recommendation of our district. Is there a problem between the board and the district? Whereas if you just laid out the criteria for us and everything, we're gonna see what you think of it.
Well, as long as what you're describing, like the prioritizing and the independent scoring or whatever you wanna call it, then I don't have a problem with them not recommending something. Because to me, that's what you would base your recommendation on anyway. Arguably.
Yeah, cause we don't wanna think like, what, yeah, this is great, and then it's like, yeah, that doesn't align with
Right.
anything that we.
And in looking at just board member reaction, as we were going through additional factors, it seemed like the master facilities plan, safety, and I'm still trying to find my voice around it, get my arms around it, but the idea of, Steve, I'm not even sure how to put it, like the money that is involved, it's not just, I'm still trying to figure that out. That seemed to generate some discussion by the board. Would you want us in our prioritization against the existing criteria, but also relative to the master facilities plan, safety, and then I'm still not finding a good way to put it, the potential additional philanthropic investment that could come with it? Do you want us to have factors like that, or what additional factors beyond the criteria should we speak to?
I'm trying to say like a conditional approval, like if it's approved for this, but it requires a fundraising amount, there's a timeline for completion. If it doesn't get met, then
36 months.
money still remains with the district, and then you make a different decision down the road
Yep.
what to do with the fund.
And I think you need to get a little more clarity from these groups, because when this was put together, that was before this current budget. And I think you may want to go back to them and say, okay, have your priorities changed at all based on what restrictions you have this year as opposed to what you had last year? And would you like to do any reallocation based on that?
Then you're kind of reopening the whole.
Well, but it's different now. Like I said, some of the projects, because of our cutbacks and stuff, some of the stuff has changed.
So that's the next thing I think that's good.
Well, like the restrictions, I was using the music department as an example, you know, their transportation budget has been cut and some other programs have been cut. And I don't know what other activities or something like that, but I was just looking at those top three, that there are some changes than what was happening when they did this originally.
So you just invite maybe a brief update.
If those are your three
Existing
contenders,
proposals.
you could just ask them if that's still the direction they were thinking.
So for Chi High, the board's direction would be that we're not reopening for new proposals, but we are allowing people that did propose to update the proposal to current numbers or any other information they'd like us to know about, to help us be clear about their proposal.
That makes
And
sense.
Mr. Kimball related to a legacy project or something like that, where there could be some name associated. I don't know how that plays into anything like this.
We have a naming rights policy, don't we? That's what I thought.
Just the board retains the right to name.
So I am also uncoupling Stilson and Chi High.
I think you have to.
I think you're getting the sense that we don't wanna get ahead of ourselves. But I don't know that any of those would sway anyone from just saying, let's do an endowment for Stilson. But if you're talking about reopening it, I would not necessarily disagree with that. There's a lot of things that were done when Stilson was built that we didn't have the money for. I mean, Stilson, if I recall, is just a building, right? Nothing outside, there's no fields, there's no, you know, things that can be shared by Homestead and by Jim Falls and by, you know, just like we share everything else,
That's
so.
community too.
The entire community, right. There's a lot we can do with that land, that's why we want 40 acres. So in answer to your question, yeah, maybe we should look at giving some more time on a Stilson.
So we would come back
Some of
then.
the strategic visioning.
Yep, we would come back then with a separate, thinking regarding Stilson and next step for Stilson and uncouple the proposals for Chi High and Stilson. And we'd come back with suggested next steps that we can talk about. Is that? All right.
It's hard in that the Chi High proposals are going to require additional funding that we really don't, we're not set up to do that. We're not set up to go into fundraising at this point, with the exception maybe of fitness center, which has struggled to do what they intended. You know, where are we gonna get time and money, management and coordination to do that? And then the Stilson piece is, yeah, really is, I think, that other strategic piece. I almost feel like both of them, I mean, we should get through what we need to do with the referendum first, instead of trying to manage three very separate things, which I know wasn't Mr. Walt's intent, I'm sure. And yet I don't know if I look at what's best for the district. That's not what's best for the district.
And I think we're, you know, we all have a sense of, we all wanna get ahead of ourselves and have that discussion, but that's a possibility too. That when these things are presented to us regarding the high school, even though they're ready and finished and polished, that we still say, you know, we're holding it till something different. So we can have that discussion, so for,
Well, really, it's not an emergency. There was no time frame put on it at all.
Well, I mean, the only thing really that's different from a year ago, and it has been a year, is that we actually did receive the money at the end of December. So, I mean, part of that too was the proposals were great, they were very well thought out and put together, and certainly things to consider, but at that point in time, we didn't have any money to allocate. And there wasn't a sense of urgency then, and I don't know that there is now, but that's kind of part of what number 6 is too, is just talking about time frame, like how soon the board would want us to finish this process and bring the evaluation framework back to the board. And do that right away, and the board can decide that doesn't have to be right now, but we can also, you know, set a strategic timeline around when to have it finished and brought to you as well.
just out of curiosity, is that money just sitting there in no interest-bearing account, is it?
We've got it invested.
I knew you would have it invested.
Why wouldn't we?
Right. That's
Sure.
why if we put parameters on it, I said we should retain it until they meet their fundraising, because we get the interest.
Right now, it's
Sorry.
our Fund 21 designated gifts fund. So it'll sit there till we spend it. The advantage of that is it can carry over, doesn't become part of our fund balance or affect aid or.
You know, that's a really good point about the subsequent timeline, because if we're going to referendum, which I'm fairly certain we are, I mean, we're gonna have to do some education, we're gonna have extra community thing, we have a lot of other time that we're gonna have to invest.
Well, and it's hard to communicate all the pieces, like somebody'll just hear, the district has $2 million. So
Right.
why are they asking, well, I'm just throwing the number out there, why are they asking for 2 million, you know, it's hard.
We live in a soundbite world.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That'll be
So-
that'll be a title in some article.
We will have to explain it. It'll have to be a slide in the presentations.
Right.
It'll have to be a.
It comes back down to the fact that I'm not gonna donate $1 million so that Dennis Fear can have $1 less on his property taxes. The school is supposed to be funded by the public, whether you can vote different on how it's funded, property taxes or state, but it's funded by the public. When someone donates money like this, they're not trying to do that to reduce property taxes, or they would just do that.
I agree. But, but
But I know the perception, right,
yes,
but that's what,
perception is everything when you're talking about.
I'm just saying that that's the perception that we have to get out there, cause that's the reality. We're not just wasting this $2 million so that we can collect another $2 million in a referendum. You know, we have to get out in front of that perception. This was a donation.
We could use it for staffing for a year, it's gone, nobody will remember it, and the $1 million gap, $2 million gap will still exist.
Staff
Yeah.
elections next year.
But on the other
we-
flip side is, we do need to have some communication with the people that submitted proposals, whatever that is, but, you know, it's been a year.
Right.
I think we're all saying the same thing, that this is a tremendous gift. There might be others who are considering this in the future as well, and we want to do something very good with it, something that people can look at and say, oh, we remember that, you know, this occurred. I think we all feel like that's important.
I love that point, communication with the people that submitted the proposals, since it's been a year out. Right, so if I look at what my, I guess, areas that I was nervous about, I have a clear understanding that, the evaluation criteria that we had, in the initial proposal form is valid. Thank you, that the board will be the final decision maker, and that the administrative team will bring an evaluation and some prioritization within those categories of the different criteria for the board to be able to consider. That for Chi High, we will not be opening for more proposals, but we will be asking for any updated information or new information, and anything that they would like to help us make a clear decision on that. That for Stilson, we'll come back with what we, you know, are considering a suggestion for next steps with that, and that the board expects the administrative team to communicate with the people that submitted the proposals. The thing that I think I'm still circling around is that, is it okay with the board that as we are looking at that evaluation and the prioritization within the categories, that we not only use the criteria in the proposal, but the safety, the master facilities plan, and is there any other additional factor that you would like the administrative team to consider as we're evaluating the viability of the proposals?
Well, I think all of those additional strategic factors, you know, even that regional competitive edge, or,
We could do that. Just,
Well, when you're saying the master facilities plan, isn't a lot of that already baked in as subcategories that went into that? So in our plan, what were the priorities inside of that plan? I mean, arguably, safety was probably in that plan to begin with too.
Chad?
So would competitiveness,
I would think. I don't know where they fit in terms of prioritizing, but
So, for example, and this is just an example, so I don't want anyone to read into examples, just like we were saying before. Chad, you were telling me about some of the safety factors that apply to music. So,
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just that the auditorium, the stage area, the instructional classrooms or the performance rooms are outdated. There's some ADA issues. There are some, I guess what I'd call security issues related to the area of the building, the way the rooms are configured.
and on the flip side, in terms of safety, talk a little bit about the safety related to the weight room area in the hallway.
Yeah, right now, I mean, due to I guess the size and the interest in performance improvement, I mean, there's large groups of students in there, in and around, outside in the hallway. There's equipment laying out there. There's too many kids crammed into a small, very inefficiently laid out weight room that was not a performance area. It's something that was moved in there over the years that
So
fit in a space, I guess, and not very well.
in my strategic planning brain, that's when I begin to think about, is there a pathway where it is not only a proposal, but it also is a line item that has been designated as an area needed in the master plan and keeps kids safe? Like that's what I tend to then begin to think about, and like it clicks off multiple, boxes of priority for the district, and it's great for kids too. So those are the things that I was like toying with as I was thinking about this.
And having a nice weight room or whatever could give us a competitive edge.
Yeah.
You know,
Or the other examples too, exactly, so.
Well, what I'm hearing is I don't think anybody objects to everything that you listed under 5.
And is there anything else that you think should be in there that we missed just because we didn't get a chance to talk about it?
That would give us plenty of fodder to talk about and discuss and evaluate the projects and make a decision.
All right. Chad, do you think we got our marching orders here?
I do, and my apologies, going through this 550-page document to try to make sure.
I was like, Chad.
can't you send it through AI?
No.
Get the condensed summary.
So the master facility study looks at this through the lens of educational adequacy, the size of the site safety like traffic flow, bus drop-off, car drop-off, pedestrian bike traffic, site amenities, adequate parking, athletic fields, outdoor classroom, outdoor learning areas. But ultimately, it then also looks at the efficiency of the scheduling, where improvements would be needed, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves either, but both areas that we're talking about have been identified as areas that need expansion and improvement.
Okay.
They're inadequate based on today's instructional practices and what they were designed for.
And did that facilities plan, was it created post Stilson?
Yes,
And
it was updated in 2025.
And what were the areas of inadequacy for Stilson?
Wish I remembered what they
What I'm saying is like, it's,
there aren't many.
yeah. Which I think then leads us to say like, maybe there should be some more strategic thinking there. Okay.
Future thinking.
All right, we're good to go. You got what you need?
Yep.
And you'll give us what we need?
We're gonna do our best.
Okay. All right, well, unless anybody has additional questions, or you guys have questions for the board?
Do we need to talk about the timeline or?
Can you, with this update, we have it as a placeholder to to discuss it for this coming board, right? It's on if we wanted to discuss it then.
We didn't know how fast, if the board wanted an expedited process when we were just drafting out, well, what could the August twenty-fifth agenda look like? We just put a placeholder in there just in case the board wanted an expedited process, so.
I think that question would be for you. I think the board would be ready to do it in August. Would you be ready to contact the people that you need to update and have the evaluation
so,
ready
yeah.
for us?
I don't think that the
Wouldn't
group,
give them time to
yeah, wouldn't give them
update.
time to update it. And does the board want to have the deliberation of this at a board meeting, or would you like a special
I
meeting?
think it'd have to be
Special.
a special one. Especially if they're doing, like what we talked about before, coming in and doing presentations and.
So we'll discuss it at the next meeting and possibly get
Or
an
do we
update
just
on where you're
report
at,
out?
how much more time you need, and then we'll doodle a meeting, a special meeting.
We're gonna do these separate, yeah. I mean, not the meeting separate, but we're evaluating them separately. And so the timelines will be different because we're,
From Tri-High and Silson, yes.
right,
Yeah.
so I don't know if we're gonna have like a
Are we gonna
concise
have a,
answer.
that's what I was just gonna say, by the
Yeah.
25th, are we even gonna know what our timeline is, what our plan is, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Would you, do you think by the 25th, have a better idea based on who you've contacted up to that point of when we should set that meeting? That's all I'm saying, is that you give us an update on,
We'll do our best, obviously, to get as far along as we can, but
Your staff,
there's not a lot of time in
your
between
staff aren't in, and when they come back, like,
that week.
they,
no, but even if you say, we can't get it done till 90 days, that's fine, I'm looking for a status conference, if you wanna call it that.
Yeah, we can put something together.
those are eyes put off.
They
Well, the
are.
status conference, yeah, you're gonna say, let's come
meet
back for
again
another
90
status in
days,
60
that's what
days.
That's what
Yeah,
happened.
90 days.
Legal terms that I have
That's
to,
where 90.
status conference.
Right,
And the judges set them to keep the cases moving, because otherwise.
and then the parties keep setting them down the road.
Historically, don't start working until there's a court hearing. I'm just saying.
Years later.
But if we're gonna
So-
look at other, if we wanna emphasize the possibility of other donations and we don't want that to coincide with a possible referendum,
Right,
There's still
we
some,
wanna push that off anyways.
Correct.
The Stilson one for sure, we would want
For
to
sure,
push
but
off.
even the high school one, we don't really wanna be,
We can't see the budgets, I can't see the budgets for any of the proposals, just so you know, I can't open that link. So I don't have any idea, but I can't imagine that any of them, except for maybe the two lasers, can come in under $1 million.
I think the music area was just under, right?
yeah, it was like
Okay.
965,000 or something, if I remember correctly.
And that's
Angela,
where
what
that
was the
feasibility
amount?
would
Okay.
come into play.
And the
I
que-
think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I say, the question is that really what they need, or they were willing to accept that much, because that's what the amount was?
Better than nothing.
But really, what they need is thus and such.
This would freshen up the existing space versus expand.
And
Right
we,
now, the auditorium's used as a classroom.
Yes, it is. Often,
Daily.
more than once daily, I think.
And even as a board meeting room from time to time.
Yeah, that too. The thing, first of all, I don't think this is an emergency. We need to be mindful about when we do things. And I think if you're reaching out to the people who put in the proposals, they're gonna have questions, say, what exactly are you looking for? And I don't know by the 25th that we're gonna be ready to even answer that question. I mean,
I think that's part of what we communicate out though, is that it's not on an expedited
right,
time frame. That
right. And
we
you will have the
really want to-
opportunity to submit more and we can give you more, yeah,
we might have follow-up
right.
questions or.
the board is conscious of current budgetary concerns and needs and also this great gift, and it's going to be a balancing act.
So take it out of the, right now we have it as a placeholder in the action item, right? take it out of the action item and put it in the informative, and if you don't have any information to give, then we'll just take it out. Yeah, communicating with the board. If you have something to tell us, then that's the time. If not,
Well, we could
Don't even
just
bring it up.
report out that we have held this special board meeting and hashed
Yeah.
out some of these.
yeah, I mean, this will be reported out anyway, right? I mean, this is all public meetings.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's good, thank you.
all right, thank you, everyone. I think we do need a, right?
Motion?
Need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Fear to adjourn. Is there a second?
second?
Second by McKillop. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion